Okay. Just taking a look here to make sure that everything is up. And this is the first time that I am streaming to YouTube. Let's see here. Okay. So looks like we are live. Just wanted to go ahead and make sure that everything was working. So we'll go ahead and start off with just a little bit of background information regarding uh, what it is that we're going to be doing. And while I'm at it, let me go ahead and dim the lights so that they're not so crazy bright in the background for right now. It'll work for right now. So, over the past 3 months, I have been working on a 3D printer design based on the Voron design V0.1. The printer actually started out as just a gantry modification. And what that ended up allowing for was 144 millimeters of travel in the X direction, 127 millimeters of travel in the Y direction, uh, at the cost of a little bit of uh, breathing room above the tool head with the top hat. So you also ended up having to move the uh, Z rails up by about 8 millimeters, and it just ended up being a little bit of a kind of a tedious uh, mod, at least in my opinion. It wasn't 100% fleshed out, and it did and still does require sensorless homing for the X and Y axes. Uh, but I decided that I wanted to go ahead and turn this into an entire printer design. So what we're going to be doing today is putting Pandora's box together for the first time, and just give you guys an idea of what to expect as far as the process of the build. Uh, this is also going to be something of a guide for one of my friends, Liliana Mears, over on the Discord, has offered to write up a manual for me. And so this is also going to be something that they are going to be using to figure out the processes. So with that, why don't we go ahead and get everything set up for the rest of the stream here, and we'll get started. First, I'm going to turn the lights on so that it's not so terrible, and I'm going to apologize for the terrible camera motions, but yeah, I'm not Nero. I don't have a bunch of cameras. All right, so here we have big box of parts, and these are overkill. I'm going to tell you that right now. But I decided that since this was going to be the first build ever of this printer, I wanted it to be pretty overkill. So I've got 3 of these for my Z motion, and then I have 2 of these for my XY motion, my AB motors. And these are all going to be, these came from the FormBot kit that most of these, at least non-printed parts, originated from. AZ Rancho, how's it going, buddy? Okay, so the first thing that we need to do, as with any printer, you need to get started on the frame. Now, the design and part of the name of this printer actually comes from a mod by none other than ZRuncho3D, who is currently in chat. The Box Zero modification for the Voron V0, and use these nifty little corners pieces that add about 50 millimeters on top of the length of the upright extrusions, and allow for a very, very rigid mount, very rigid joint between all of them. So in addition to this, we're also going to be using 4 300 millimeter and bring in a 200 millimeter extrusion for comparison. Rails, or not rails, extrusions for the upright corners. So we'll go ahead and get things started off with that, and we're going to get the big box of parts out of the way because we are not going to need that for another little bit here. And while I'm turned around and thinking about it, there are also going to be a need for some extra M3x6 fasteners because I was a dummy and didn't realize that I didn't have enough M3x6, and not all of mine are going to be buttonhead like the BOM calls for. So another nice thing is after this build is completed and I've made sure that there are no major revisions that need to be made, these are all going to be, or the CAD and the STLs properly oriented are going to be available for download from my GitHub page. And I'll make sure to mention something in the Doomcube Discord, as well as in the Voron Design Discord under the Voron User Mods channel when I make those available. So if you're not already a part of the community, great bunch of people. I've had a lot of fun interacting with everybody. And just overall great experience. Yeah, let me see. I mean, I don't know if this is going to be the best way to go about bumping up the light, but I do have a pretty massive lamp that I could throw up somewhere. Just not exactly sure where is the best place to put it. Or actually, for that matter, how I'm going to end up mounting it. Huh. Yeah, I didn't even think about it, but black on black is not exactly the best for this. Alright, so I have an idea on how I can do this. Bear with me for just a couple of moments. I'm actually going to take an unfinished printer build and use it as a place to mount an extra light. see how well this is going to work for me. It should be okay. Now I just got to find a place that I can actually plug this in. Man, I tell you what, this Magnus Metal Desk is great until you get a bunch of crap on your desk and need a bunch of wires run in this built-in channel. Then it just gets nearly impossible to move around or work in this channel. Okay. Okay, that should be a little bit better. Looks like I'm going to be a little bit blown out, but this is about the best that I can do at the moment. Let me try moving this light up a little bit so that it's not blowing out as much. All right, how's that look? I mean, obviously it's not going to be perfect. I did preface this stream with I'm not Nero, I'm not Steve. I don't have the stream quality that they do. All right, so the construction of the frame, at least for the bottom of it, is going to be uh, reversed from the Voron V0, as the V0 has a backpack, as it's I don't know if it's really referred to as a backpack on the V0, but it allows the majority of the electronics to be mounted behind the printer rather than the bottom, as most of the other printers have. So this design really wanted to take advantage of as much of the printer's internal volume as possible. And that meant getting rid of that backpack for electronics. So with that in mind, rather than having the crossbar all the way at the front and then another crossbar about 37 millimeters from the back, it's actually just exactly reversed. Give me just one moment here. Right. So minor FYI, backpack would be sticking out. There are backpacks for the V0, like one that Mr. Fish did, but the default is just rear electronics area or similar. Okay, I mean, that makes sense. And I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I still don't know a whole heck of a lot about 3D printers. Uh, I'd like to think that I've picked up on uh, the basics and a little bit of the more advanced things pretty quickly, but at the same time, I know that I don't know as much as most other people. I've only been working with 3D printers for about 6 months at this point, and like a lot of people, I started out with an Ender, which almost got me to give it up. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to go ahead and do, which is probably backwards to what a lot of people would expect, is I'm going to assemble the top of the printer first. And I found that it is, at least for me, easier to get everything lined up with the top of the printer before I start worrying about putting the bottom together. And this is specific to the zero panels, or not the zero panels, the box zero upper corner. There seems to be just a little bit of outward flex in mine. It's very likely that that is just a defect in my prints, as I did have to print these a little bit on the quicker side to make sure that I had them ready and available. Oh, well, thank you. I definitely appreciate that. But I still wouldn't say that I know a lot about how they work, if I'm being quite frank. Yes, I know hot plastic go burr, but realistically, it's about it. So this piece is going to be basically the rear upright as the stock V0 would have it, but this is actually going to end up being the front. You see that there is a through hole for the blind joint here as well as here, but there is not a through hole here. Whereas on this one, there is a through hole here and a through hole here in addition to the through hole here. So we'll go ahead and start by preparing one of the first corners, making sure that the through hole is facing towards what will be the front of the printer. And this is wanting to give me some grief, so bear with me for a second while I work on getting this in there. Okay, there we go. It's starting to go. Just need to get these nuts properly oriented. And realistically, this is probably going to end up being the longest part of the build, at least for me, is I found these to be a little bit fiddly, whether I'm preloading the nuts into the extrusion or if I'm doing it like this. I've had a little bit better experience loading the nut onto the screw and then going for it, but your mileage may vary. That's totally going to be up to you and what you find to be easiest. And just so that you are aware, there are links in the video description to all of the GitHub pages for anything that has had a play in the design of Pandora. Are these planed to fit first? You want a tight slip fit? Yeah, they are. They are planed. I've assembled the frame off stream just to make sure that everything went together and that I didn't make any mistakes in measuring. So yes, there is a these have been planed so that they fit very, very snug. Okay, so being that this is one of the front extrusions, see the Mastermind or Mastermods logo that I've kind of embossed on this one, in addition to the Box Zero logo from the original upper corners by Z Rancho. And then I modified the back ones so that they would be blank, because one side's going to be covered, and I mean, personally, I think one corner of having the logo is kind of enough. Okay, so get started on the second front corner here. Okay, so I've got the second front corner started, making sure that I am putting everything in the correct orientation. So this will need to go here. And now it's a matter of getting the nuts to align again. I almost had it. Get in your home. Yeah, and building it from the bottom to the top is actually the first way that I built it. And like I said, there was some, there seemed to be some alignment issues on the parts that I printed. Just the way that they all came together, it seemed like the top corners were kind of bowed out a little bit. Oh no, yeah, I definitely understand uh, why you would want to build from the bottom up, and that's, like I said, that's perfectly acceptable. I'm not arguing against it by any stretch of the imagination. This is for the express reason of the geometry of the parts that I printed uh, did not work all that well. Just so you know, the link you wrote in Discord is not working. I will have to take a look into that. Which Discord? Is this the Doom Discord or the Voron Design Discord? Oh, Doom and Voron both. Huh. I am going to have to see what I can do about getting that fixed. Let me go ahead and get this top corner settled, and I will take a look and see what's going on there. Might have to. I wonder if there is a new link here. Okay. And of course I threw my keyboard. Okay. Okay, so there we go. I've updated, or at least posted, new links, and yeah, it does look like the link is a bit different for whatever reasons. All right, let's go ahead and finish getting these top corners set up. I was hoping to have been a little bit further along, but luckily the rest of the assembly after the frame is relatively easy as long as we don't forget to preload the nuts. Huh, I didn't even know I had a YouTube link in my Discord profile. Neat. Alright, so this one. Alright, so that one's that way. So if I were to set this one here, it would need to go this way. And I gotta really stop pulling things in close like I'm used to doing, because that's pulling it off of the camera feed. Yeah, that is probably it. Uh, this is my first time streaming with YouTube, and even though I had scheduled the stream, I couldn't figure out how to actually start it. And whenever I tried to start streaming in OBS, it told me that I needed to create a new uh, create a description or so on and so forth. So, but when I went live in OBS, like it went to the one that was pending. So I don't know. I don't know how any of this stuff works. This is all new to me. And I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here, but I'm just literally working on aligning up the nuts so that I can slide them into the extrusion. Can't stop start. Okay, so now we've got the uprights for the top corners completed. Now there are only a couple of other extrusions that actually matter. And once I find the second one, I'll just go ahead and show you guys which one. And in case I didn't mention this, the entire frame is, aside from the 4 300 millimeter long corners, is from the Voron V0 bomb. So if you've already got a Voron V0 kit, the only extra pieces for the frame that you would need would be these corners and of course the printed parts here. But these, get good lighting if I can, are the extrusions that matter, the ones that have the offset hole that puts the extrusion, if I remember correctly, 22 meters from the end, 22 millimeters from the end. And These are used at the bottom with these holes on the Y extrusions, so the extrusions running front and back, with the hole towards the front. So aside from those two and the four corners, as long as you're using the proper length extrusion, it doesn't matter which extrusions you're using. So from here, we are just going to go ahead and proceed with topping off the upper corners here. And it actually looks like there is a screw left over from the initial assembly. And just for the sake of making sure that everything is all matchy-matchy, I'm just going to go ahead and use a socket head for this as well. Okay, so just using the Allen head to hold it in place and then to turn it so that the nut is just barely started on there. Everybody's got their own way of doing things. This is just the way that I find the easiest. There we go. And then we are going to, just like we did with the uprights, load this extrusion onto the nuts. And then snug it up. So if you have any sort of questions regarding the design process or the printer just as a whole, feel free to air your questions. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you guys might have on it. Okay, so this is the front left, and this is going to be the front right. So go ahead and get this one loaded too. And in case I didn't make it clear as to what I'm using as of right now, these are M3x6 socket head cap screws, though in the bill of materials they are listed as button head cap screws, but either or will work. It's since these are recessed, though it is a square hole, it should be fine. And then go ahead and get this one going. Beautiful. Okay. And now we are going to move to the other side. Make sure that I have the... Okay, perfect. I'm just making sure that I'm getting everything set up the correct way here. because I spent so much time on the top corners, I wanted to make sure that they were oriented correctly. I mean, that's sarcasm, but I actually do want to make sure they're oriented correctly. There we go. And go ahead and get this one in there. Oh, that one went right in. Heck yeah. Okay. Almost put that in the wrong place. Go ahead and get that nut started so we can move over to the other one. There we go. Get in your home. There. Okay. Now we just need to go ahead and get this one in there. And then I am going to end up preloading a couple of M3 nuts that are not listed in the BOM or in the CAD. And this is because I am planning on adding a camera to the front, and I am toying around with the idea of having the Bowden, or reverse Bowden rather, at the top rear rather than following the rest of the umbilical down to the electronics area. So for the front, I'm going to just take this, load in a couple of M3s, 2 is all I need, and then I'm going to go ahead and start prepping the front upper extrusion here. Okay. Now I need to make sure to orient the preloaded nuts down. And I'm going to have to change the way that I'm holding things here so I can actually see what I'm doing. Are Ah, well, shoot. I guess I didn't need to preload them yet anyway, but put them in the wrong place. Oh, that's cool. Definitely looking forward to that. All right, so the next thing that I need to do is for the rear, don't use that extrusion. I need to go ahead and get it prepped as well. Because what I'm going to end up doing is just taking this piece and sliding it over onto the other half of the frame once I have it prepped. Okay. So now, just going to go ahead and get this one lined up. And I promise this isn't anything all that exciting. This is the same thing that I've been doing for the past, what has it been, 45 minutes at this point? Just lining up hex nuts and pushing extrusions onto a plastic corner bit. Oh yes, please. Having backstop on the no drop nuts is, yes, I approve. Okay, so next, like I said, planning on playing around with a reverse Bowden at the top here, so I'm just going to drop in a couple more nuts for that. And now we're ready to go ahead and start prepping the last 4 nuts for each side here on the top, at least the last 4 that will hold extrusions. Okay. Either the thread on this nut or the thread on this screw is buggered because it is binding basically immediately. So try a new nut here. Yep, buggered thread on the nut. Okay. Also, the dueling zero specific box corners have slots to add front facing no drop nuts in after assembly. Another nice quality of life bonus. Right on. Yeah, I don't know if you'd taken a look at the CAD, but or even paid that much attention to the upper corners, but I actually ended up removing the like extrusion slot from the front of the frame or the front of the upper corners, and that's literally just because there's no point in them being there, and I'm doing custom corners anyway. And it also allowed me to get a little bit more creative with the placement of the magnets for the door, which if you didn't see on Discord, I shared a particularly graphic print failure image showing how my zero panel corner print failed on our 15 of 17 layer shift. Found out that my belts were just a touch loose on my V2. Okay. So that corner started. Okay. And in the interest of saving time, I'm going to skip the, 12 screws that are intended to go in the actual upper corners, just because I can add those literally at any time. Just making sure that everything is tight, and obviously not going to put a large amount of torque on the ball end of a ball head hex nut or hex driver. Okay, so that should be the upper part of the frame done. All right, so this is what I'm referring to, Z-Rancho. So there's no extra channel going up the side here like there is on the corners. So this allowed me to put 2 spots for a magnet, and I also modified the zero panels so that magnets would be able to be glued in place and keep the door shut. Okay, so this is the part where I actually think I need to reference the CAD and make sure that I know what nuts I want to preload, because good God, I do not want to have to take this apart. Okay, so it looks like going for the top, I need 2 at the front, facing towards the inside. And then I also need, well, first I need this to actually fit. Why are you not going? Is there a burr on this? None that I am able to see. That one went without issue. Okay. Okay, and then I need one facing the inward. Okay. Wow, this nut is not flat. Then I believe I also just need the one inside here. And give me just a second. I'm gonna pull up something on the side here. Okay. Okay, so that should be all of the nuts that I needed to go ahead and preload here. And now we need to get some things assembled for the Y rails. So, first thing that we need is going to be 2 of the 150 millimeter MGN7s, and these are going to actually be facing towards the top of the printer. And we don't want to tighten these down all the way until we actually have everything for the gantry installed. Reason being is that there's a space between, an optimal amount of space between the rear of the rail and the front of the AB mounts. And I actually went ahead and put together just a motor pulley jig, and it also is the same thickness for that optimal distance between the rails and the motor mounts. Also magnets, how do they work? Yeah, I may have missed that one for a little bit there, but indeed, magnets. How do they work? Okay. So now, the next thing that we need to do is make sure that we have the appropriate nuts preloaded for the Y extrusions. So there's actually quite a few. So there is going to be one at the back on the top side, two at the front on the top side, and then there are just the two more that go on the bottom, and it doesn't matter what side you put them in on the bottom, as they don't have a rail preventing them from going to one side or the other. If I didn't mention, the silver screws that I put in here on the ends of the Y extrusions are 10 millimeter. I just pulled that from what the V0 typically uses, and that's what we went with. Seems to work for that design, so figured it might work for my design. So just the other Y extrusion, setting up the exact same number of preloaded nuts, one at the back on top, two at the front on top, and then two go in the bottom. Okay. Now I want to double check and make sure. Okay, so that is the front. Go ahead and get this guy on here. Now, the one benefit that I like, and no, this is not the final position. It definitely goes down quite a bit further. But I was just going to say that one thing that I do like about these corners being just a little bit out, I guess, is that they actually end up supporting the one of the rails if you have them at the appropriate height above the surface. Okay, and I'm not going to tighten this all the way down because once I get the bottom extrusions in, I'm going to want to make sure that there is, I believe it was 170 millimeters between the Y extrusions and the top of the bottom frame extrusions. Oop, this side's just a little bit too low. There we go. All right, so now that we've got the Y extrusions in, we can go ahead and put in some additional nuts. We need two more at the front on each side, and that should be it as far as the uprights needing preloaded nuts. So I'm also just going to go ahead and grab two more of the MGN7 150 millimeter rails, as these will actually be preloaded in a bit of an odd position on the inside of the front two rails. Bernie, yes, this is a brand new build. This is a brand new design that I started with about 3 months ago, and this is the parts themselves are not brand new. The majority of the parts, as far as non-printed parts, did come from my original FormBot V0.1 kit. But yes, I started this build from scratch, and I just dropped something, I think. Okay, yeah, one of the M2x8s came out of the rail here. I'll need to make sure to get that put back in place. Right, so actually before I do this, I need to remember to preload a nut on each side before I put the rail in. There we go. So now we go ahead and slide this in here. looks like I may need to go ahead and loosen a couple of these. Apparently I didn't get them loose enough whenever I was taking them apart. There we go. Then we will go ahead and get this one loaded in there as well. And I'm not worried about tightening anything up just yet because these also need to be spaced off of the bottom. Let's see. All right, Z-Runcho, take it easy, buddy. Doing a VC at the same time. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Bernie. Okay. So all of this is done. These parts are done. So looks like we should be ready to go ahead and start preparing the extrusions for the bottom. I mean, I am speaking. If you're wanting to uh, jump in on like a Discord chat or something along those lines, I'm gonna have to decline on that. Granted, this is I don't plan on making the stream something that I do regularly. Um, I want the option to be available to me in the future, and I'm not assuming that you have any bad intentions, but it's one of those things where I don't really want to take the risk. I'm going to apologize for that, but I mean, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask them directly in chat, and I'd be happy to answer for you. All right, so these two are going to be what did I do with that other one? There it is. Okay, so these two are going to be along the Y, and I'm actually going to remove the screws that I just put in this one because, not that it matters, but this extrusion doesn't have any pre-drilled holes along the length of the faces. So this one I'll just go ahead and reserve for the X-rail and set that aside. Okay, so we'll go ahead and grab this one. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do the rear. Go ahead and set this down in the rear first. Can't think of any reason why I shouldn't. But for the rear, the bottom rear piece, we need to have two loaded into the very bottom. That NEMA 17, that's one of the three that get used for the Z motion in this printer. And then there's also a single that needs to go towards the front, and this is going to be used for the rear gantry support, similar to the trident going on the front of this extrusion. So we'll go ahead and get this loaded in here, a bit like this. And I'm just going to snug it up so that it doesn't fall anymore. How you doing, Maple Leaf Makers? You here to cause some trouble? I promise I've been good in the Voron Discord. I've been using your power wisely. Okay. So that is the rear. And then these two are the side, and then this one can be used for the front. So I need, I need 2 M3 nuts on either side. Just here for the injuries. All right. Well, I'll try not to disappoint, but I'm also going to try to disappoint. Okay, so we're actually starting to get into where I mentioned that the back of the stock V0, or the bottom of the stock V0, gets turned around for this design. And if you're able to see on the front here, the way that the rails are set up, there's not really a room for a front crossbar here. So that is the second M2 by 8 that's fallen out. As I was saying, by turning around the bottom of the printer, having this extrusion pushed right around to here rather than all the way up here, that allowed me to reclaim a lot of lost space on the y-axis. Let's see here, so I need to preload 4 nuts into the bottom of this one, and I believe 2 into the side. Get in your home. Oh, one quick thing. Maple Leaf Makers, you said that at some point you were gonna make a stealth bed for the Tri-Zero. I was really hoping to have it for this build, but still waiting. And you know what? I preloaded these nuts on the wrong sides. So 2 of these get to be shifted up here. There we go. And now we have an extrusion that gets to go right in here. And before I can get this to go in any further, I need to tighten this a little bit and push that nut in. And again, just going to be snugging these up. I'm going to be turning this over and making sure that everything is as square as I can get it with just a piece of tempered glass on my desk. I unfortunately do not have a local cabinet shop to be able to beg and plead for an offcut, and really don't feel like driving like 30-45 minutes out of my way to get an offcut of granite or similar. Plus, this does just fine for me, and it's a 3D printer. It's not a precision machine. It's accurate, as Nero would say, but it's definitely not precision. Okay, and pop two of these in here. You know what? I just realized that I forgot some preloaded nuts. Dag nabbit. I forgot two on the top of that rear one, and then two on the top of the first Y extrusion that I put in. And I need to take that Y extrusion out anyway because I forgot to put the front extrusion in, and can't really do that with the Y extrusion installed. Okay, so I tried, but it scope creeped into having rainbow barf support, and then things got complicated and couldn't figure out how to make it mount. You'll work on it. All right, awesome. Well, I am holding you to the high standards of the uh, Voron ETAs of soon. But yeah, whenever you do get it done, let me know. There isn't much room at the front of Pandora's box, but I'm sure I could make it fit as long as it's not ungodly thick. Okay, so I need to go ahead and slide in two more nuts into the extrusion here. And then make sure that I've got these both facing the appropriate directions. And make sure that the nuts are in the appropriate spots. Perfect. Okay, and then this goes like this. And this is another one of those things where it's not tight, just snug enough that that there's just enough room for play. Got these guys started, and my frame is not square. And that is why we left everything slightly loose. Okay. So, before I go tightening things down, double checking to make sure that I have all of the appropriate nuts where they need to be. And from what I can see, looks like it. Okay, so snug this bad boy up before turning it over and really cranking down on it. And of course I'm going to try to get things at least somewhat lined up, make my life a little bit easier. Ah, yes, Thun. All right, so this is starting to look a little bit like a printer frame. And while I'm thinking about it, I want to see if I can try to get this back in before I lose that M2 nut. And I think I lost that M2 nut. Oh, that is unfortunate. Did I also lose this M2 nut? Yes, I did. Okay. I might be able to figure something out at a later time. Otherwise, I'll just have a rattly screw. Is what it is. Okay. So, let's go ahead and start getting things in their proper place. Yes, I'm using an extrusion, which is not necessarily going to be flat, but it's probably the flattest thing that I've got that's easily accessible. Okay. Okay, so that side is pretty well done. And then once I've got everything set, I'm going to come through and actually torque everything down with the proper end of this hex wrench. Okay. And then this back piece and this front piece are the last two that I really need to worry about. And this front piece is a little bit trickier because it needs to be inset 37 millimeters from the front of the printer. The exact same as it would be for the Voron V0. Why am I not able to... There we go. Okay. Beautiful. So now let's go ahead and give these all a good ugga-dugga just to be 100% certain that they are nice and tight. And for what it's worth, the reason that I'm having a little bit of trouble finding the screw in these blind joints is because I drilled these holes myself, and I just stripped that. Oh, Pandora's not coming apart. Oh, shoot. Anyway, I drilled these holes myself, and all I had was hand tools. So definitely did not get any precision machining points doing this. All right, so now I need to see about finding my calipers. Okay. And by the way, yes, these are the cheapest calipers I've ever seen as well. Okay. Well, I got those screws out of the way again. Let's see, we want to go ahead and get this set to 37. That one's pretty spot on. Okay. They are both pretty well spot on. So we will flatten and tighten. Okay. There we go. And that is the vast majority of the frame completed. And now I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is start at least a little bit on the Z motion here. And I am not sure if that is because of the... How many of these screws am I going to lose? Where did that one even come from? I'm sorry, I keep hitting the microphone on the printer. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be fun. I should probably tighten these just a little bit to get that to stop happening. Probably should have figured that out after the second time it happened. Hell, probably should have figured it out after the first time it happened. And just so that you guys are aware, I do plan on calling the stream at about 8 o'clock, mostly because I figure a lot of you watching this would probably also want to watch Nero's stream. And I don't know, his is probably going to be a little bit more interesting than this. Also, better camera angles, better cameras. You know, the works. Okay, so shit should stop falling now. At least I hope. And now we can go ahead and set up. Actually, okay, yeah, it's slightly bowed because of the way that it sits on my desk. These are two of the Secret Labs Magnus desks just kind of bolted together to make a corner desk because I like the Magnus desk and I wanted a corner desk, so I did what any sane person would do. I bought two of the desk and drilled holes and bolted it together. And there's a little bit of a lip on both of them, causing the glass to, I guess, bow just a little bit. Okay, so next thing that we want to do is make sure that I didn't lose my calipers already. There they are. I hope this set of calipers will go to 170. Definitely not meant to. Okay. Go over to the other side here. Do the same thing. Make sure that these are 170 millimeters apart. And what this does is this ensures that gantry is the same height from the base of the printer that it would have been if this was a completely stock V0. While that's not incredibly important, it was something that I kept in mind during the design process. Okay, and let's go ahead and give these the good old ugga-duggas. This put away. By put away, I mean just thrown. Oh. Alright, and now we can see the original profile of the V0 frame. I'm just double checking to make sure that all of these will line up. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so let's go ahead, turn this over now that we've got a full frame, and let's get started on the feet. And this is just going to give us somewhere to set the printer down without making a huge ruckus anymore. And for this design, just because I wanted to make sure that the printer had a decently wide stance, I actually borrowed a bit of the foot design of the V2, the Voron V2, in the fact that I am using much bigger feet than what the regular Voron V0 would use. But this should look very similar, actually larger than the foot pad that goes on the V2. Now, for each of the legs, they all have a specific purpose. This one is for the power inlet. There are 3 heat sets on the bottom of all of these in the same pattern or mirrored so that these can be put in place. This one is going to be the front left or the front right motor mount. This one actually has a spot here in the back with some additional heat set inserts that we use to mount an extra bracket for the cable chain. And then this one broke. Well, that's unfortunate. But this is going to be for the other motor mount. Good news is I've still got at least in corners for the motor mount. I'll have to reprint that whenever I order some more filament. All right, so let's go ahead and grab 4 M5 by 16 button heads, as well as 4 M5 nuts. And we will also need an appropriately sized hex key. So simple to put the foot on, and what's also nice is you can take this foot pad off without having to take the foot off. So feel free to get the actual rubber part of the foot installed whenever you feel like it. There's 2 of the 4. Come on, get in there. There we go. There's 3 of the 4. All right, so all of those are in place. So we're going to go ahead and start with the front here. This needs an M3 by 8 and an M3 by 10. So grab an M3 by 10 and an M3 by 8 out of my stash here. Double check. Yep, 3 and 8. So the 8 is going to go into one of these preloaded nuts. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and line that one first. Get it started. And then bring the whole assembly up to the front corner so that I can go ahead and get the M3 by 10 threaded in up here. And there we go. There's one part down. And while we're here, let's go ahead and just get the foot put in place. And for this, I actually think I'm going to dip into my socket head cap screws just for the fact that these holes are recessed, and that's what socket head cap screws are better for. So if you're not aware, socket head cap screws have a smaller surface area that meets the surface of the material, but they have a more robust head, so you can actually put a bit more torque on them. Now, granted, I'm not going to be putting a lot of torque on this anyway, but if it's got a flat surface, it's better to use a button head, just because the button head has a higher area that the actual head of the screw impacts or touches against the surface of the material. Okay, so that's 1 foot down. Go ahead and grab another M8 or M3 by 8, another M3 by 10. Slide all of these nuts out of the way. And I just want you all to know that I am doing my best to not make a these nuts joke. I promise you that I am taking this very seriously and that I have committed to high quality content for you all. Okay. So 2nd foot down. Nope. Gosh, you guys can't even see what I'm doing here. Ha! Grab the wrong daggone corner. Yep, there we go. That's what I expected to see in chat. Maybe I ought to pull the camera out just a little bit so that I can work a little bit more comfortably and let you see what I'm actually doing rather than continuously pulling the part that I'm working on off camera. All right, there we go. Moving on to the back. Now, I've done my best to make sure that it's apparent that, oh, actually, this one, the DC inlet, or the AC inlet, is a little bit different than the rest of the feet, or the legs, as it actually requires M3 by 10 in both areas. Come on now. This is not wanting to cooperate. There we go. There we go. So just like we did for the front, we're gonna grab right. Well, we had it started, I thought. I think that this light next to me would be helping me see what's going on, but it is actually doing the opposite. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay. I am running out of M3/8 socket heads. Realistically, I probably just need to find some that I've taken out of older projects and just stuffed in a box somewhere, rather than putting them back where they're supposed to go. Okay, just one more to get done here, and I honestly don't remember if this one uses two M3x10s or an M3x10 and an M3x8. Okay, M3x8 and an M3x10. Okay, that one's about done. I think one change that I will probably end up making on this foot here is cutting out this rounded section here and just having the straight L shape that the rest of them have to save material. I designed it to have that as a little bit of extra structural rigidity, but none of the other corners seem to have any sort of rigidity issues, so I think it was basically just wasted plastic. Okay, and we have feet. Beautiful. Okay, so I believe the next thing that we are going to want to do is start getting ready for the gantry, which actually requires another piece of the Z motion system. Right, so this is the rear motor mount, and between the rear motor mount and this extrusion, we're going to have a uh, similar to the Trident, a support that comes up the back here. And then there is another piece that ends up going between the two motor or drive assemblies. Okay, so get a blind joint going here. Turn this on its side down here. Use this little buddy. we will get it started. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is measure the distance from the outside to the actual piece. That's 97.5, and if I remember correctly, this should be 112.5. So we are going to okay, this isn't right. These calipers are junk, man. Okay. So 111.18. So outside to outside here is going to be 230. Minus 15, that's 215. And then you divide that by 2, that should be 107.5. Or, yeah, 107.5. So I had taken the numbers just a bit too far. So why don't we do this? So I know that this is 107.5. Okay. Go ahead and snug that up for now. We're going to turn this back upside down and get started on the drive assembly. So I need 2 3x6 and 1 M3x10. So the M3x10 goes right through here. Then I take it down just enough that I can go ahead and start lining up X nuts. Again, running into an issue where this light it's hurting more than it's helping. As far as my visibility of the parts. Okay, that one seems to be going. That one is not. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a magnet. Get that out of there. Well, I just threw something and I don't know what it was. There we go. Now I should be able to finish tightening this down. Maybe. How in the hell did that happen? Okay, what is going on here? Okay. Oh great, the threads on this nut are buggered. Well, it does not appear that the use of an M3 by 8 is a bad thing there. Okay, double check just to be 100% safe. Beautiful. Okay. So now, looks like we can go ahead and get started on the gantry. So, let's see what fun things we can put together. Okay, so I think setting up the motor mounts is going to be the best next step here, because we still need to index these Y rails off of the motor mounts. Now, you do need a lot of bearings for just this printer in general. There's a lot of belt runs, and having the corners extend like they do here uh, makes it much more difficult to route the belts in a clean way. I've come up with a few designs or belt paths that allow you to use fewer than the 5 on each side that we're going to be using, but none of those actually fit the amount of travel that we are going to be pursuing with this design. So I meant to reprint all of this, but I kind of forgot to. And the reason being is I've got tabs on both sides of the extrusion here. And while this will end up working for what we need it to, it's going to be, I guess that's not actually that bad. Okay, never mind. Ignore what I was talking about. Okay, so let's go ahead and set the frame down for now. And see what we can do about zooming in a little bit. That's about all the zoom I've got. Okay, so similar to the AB mounts on the original V0, we've got spacers. The original spacers are 7 millimeters in diameter on the outside. These are only 6, and that was a late discovery that needed to be implemented because of the way that the belt path is. It gets very, very tight in the motor mounts. So in order to accommodate, I had to get very creative with, well, I had to get dangerously close to a lot of things. So just like with Vorons, we're using the traditional bearing stacks that goes washer, bearing, bearing, washer. And then if you're doing like a double stack, washer, bearing, bearing, washer, washer, bearing, bearing, washer. Okay, so I should have enough to be able to at least do one side here. So first we're going to grab the top. We need an M3 by 40, which I believe is, yep, this one. Take, there's going to be a double stack here. And then we also need an M330, well, two M330s. for the two other locations for bearings. Now, this is going to be the B assembly, so we need to go ahead and put our 9mm spacer in there. Shim, two bearings, shim, then we do another double stack for the back here. Our last shim on there, and then we grab the bottom portion of the motor assembly, slide that most of the way on here, just make sure that the bearings are captured, turn it over, and then we can completely screw everything up. Oh, can I recover it? Hey, I recovered it. All right, so the two inner bearing sets, so the three inner bearings, screws that hold them into place are just going into plastic. Actually, that's something that's pretty common throughout the design of this printer, is that the vast majority of bearing stacks will screw either into a nut that's being retained by an extrusion or into plastic. And the reason that I did that is specifically for the bearing stacks that go into the plastic, you really don't need to hulk down on these. You just need to go until there's no vertical play in the bearings, and that's it. So that's one of the assemblies basically done. There are a couple of things that we still have to do here, like put in the motor and the tensioner, but we actually can't do that until we get the printer installed in the machine. And now that I think about it, I am fairly certain I forgot. I did. I forgot to preload two nuts on the inside of the Y extrusions. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. There's a screw that goes through here, and then there's supposed to be also a screw that goes through here. And this one here is the one that's supposed to go through the Y extrusions. But between this screw that goes into the Y extrusion and then this screw that goes into the uh, corner upright, that should be enough, in addition to the center support and the crossbar that will go between the two drive assemblies. So let's go ahead and get our A drive put together. Same thing, 5 bearing stacks, 10 shims, upper frame, lower frame, and 9mm spacer. All right, and just like we did with the first one, we're gonna start with the top, M3 by 40, two M3 by 30s, except not the socket head cap screws. Those are reserved for a different part of this assembly. Then we just start building bearing stacks. Nope. Don't need to be throwing shims. And before I put this one all the way together, I'm going to show you really how tight the tolerances are on this. And I think Z-Runcho said it best. This printer uses every effing millimeter possible. But that's the distance between some of the bearings. And that's not even the tightest distance. So this printer was, or this design was definitely an exercise in patience and definitely creativity, because I had to be very creative in multiple areas to be able to achieve this design without losing a large amount of travel that I had worked so hard to obtain. Now, coming from the original Pandora Gantry for the Boron V0, there is loss in Y travel. That one has a theoretical maximum of 127.2 millimeters, whereas this design only has a theoretical maximum of 125.4 millimeters, I want to say. But there we go. We have the two drive assemblies put together, and we are going to grab one of the 100 millimeter extrusions and get these set up. Now, we're also going to need another piece here for the center support, and we also need a piece for the back to prevent the Bowden and belts from rubbing again, or Bowden and there it is. The Bowden and wires from rubbing against the belts. Alright, so we need to load 7 nuts on the bottom, 2 for each drive assembly, 3 for the center support. Then we need to load another 2 on the back for the belt guard. And since everything is pretty well loosey-goosey right now, I am going to take advantage of that and just get things installed. Okay, so that one worked. There we go. If I remember correctly, these are M3x10s. I did remember correctly. And it's important to remember that the open side of these holes is going to face the belt guard. So we're going to turn this up here, slide things down just a bit, and we are going to start lining up where the bolts are going to be. Start with the center one because that one would be the most difficult to access the nut for, and then start doing the outer ones. And, as luck would have it, didn't have any issues whatsoever getting that done. Fantastic. So the next thing that we're going to go ahead and do is finish loading the nuts that we need for the AB drives. We also need to put 2 for each side on the top. Right, now if I remember correctly as well, these use M3x12. Yes. So total of 8 M3x12s. Okay. 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 Don't you do it. Shit. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm gonna have to reassemble. Shoot. Oh boy, I made a dumb. I made a big dumb. Now, the good news is the bottom of the drive frames hasn't been screwed in yet. So all that's holding them in are the M330s. So what we'll do is we will go ahead and do these one at a time, take our time, make sure that we get everything right. And this time, just for the sake of making sure that I don't let that happen again, I'm going to put a M3 nut on the bottom of on that M340. Okay. Okay. So M340. Shim. Sure. Shim. Oh boy. Shim. Bearing. Bearing. Shim. That on here in just a second. Okay, there we go. So this side is about back to where we had it. I'm gonna go ahead and see how close I was. I was off. Okay. So that's one side down. Now we get to go back and put that double stack back on this side. Oh, that'll make things a little bit easier for me. All right, M3 by 40. Shim, bearing, bearing, shim, shim, bearing, bearing, shim. And just like we did with the other side, we are going to put nut on the end of this, just to make sure that I don't do something stupid again. All right, there we go. So now we get to put these in place. Okay. Hmm. So there's a little bit of a problem with this picture. This is the front. This is supposed to be on the back. Oh, good grief, man. Either I should have slept more last night or something. I am making all kinds of mistakes here. Oh boy. Has to happen at least once per build. All right, I'll take that. I'll take that. There we go. So, we are about to finally have a proper set of AB motors. Why does this screw look so long? Oh, it's not. It's the... That was starting to cross thread. There we go. Sorry for being so quiet. Just have a difficult time focusing and speaking at the same time. And needless to say, I'm not used to streaming in front of, or building in front of people. But I wanted to make sure that I had at least some sort of a guide for this before I released the files. All right. So, to recap, we have for each side, we've got an M3x40, two M3x30s, four M3x12s, and then for this back brace or the belt guard here, we've got two M3x8s, and then for the center support slash Z idler, we've got three M3x10s. So that is everything as far as the motor assembly is concerned. Aside from the motors and the tensioners, which we will get to right after we put this on the actual frame. All right, so what we are going to need to do is kind of snap this into place, which actually worked out pretty well. Now we need to take these hex nuts out. Then make sure that the preloaded hex nuts are lined up with our M3x40. So should just be able to take that down. It's a little bit too far forward. Same with this one. Let's see if we can get this to start. Seems to have started. See if we can get this one to start. Also seems to have started. So go ahead and put that the rest of the way down. Oh, this one may not have actually started. Huh. There we go. And again, tightening this, we just want to make sure that there's no play, bearings, just not over tightening it. So going until bearings stop moving vertically. Now for this one. This one is going to be a little bit more of a challenge because apparently I did not get that in its correct position. To be about right. Okay, try this again. Let's try pushing this with the smallest one we've got because the other ones seem to have gotten slightly magnetized. And I'm going to pull this off to the side a little bit here so I can actually see what I'm doing. Still nothing. This one is being a gigantic pain in my ass. Actually get it. In the hell is going on here? Fucking magnetized Allen keys, come on. Don't tell me this is another one of those fucking nuts that doesn't actually have threads to it. Okay, so it does actually have threads. So why is it being such a pain in the ass to get started? I don't know how much more on I could be. This nut really does not want to thread one of these M340s, man. Okay. I literally felt the tip of the screw fall into the threaded opening of that hex nut, and it just will not thread. I do not understand what is going on here. Hmm. Well, that's odd. A television, spare computer, and extra light all just shut off at the same time. I'm wondering if there is something wrong with the outlet. I think I may actually have to go ahead and call it here. There's a very real possibility I'm going to have to tear this printer apart to figure out why this isn't threading in. Um, for those of you that stopped by, I appreciate you hanging out, watching me try to build a printer. I'm going to try to pick this up again next weekend, same time, Saturday, 5 o'clock. See if we can get a little bit more done. Realistically, the remainder of the build is a decent bit easier than what we've already gotten done. Just a matter of kind of installing things and running belts, really. So, yeah, appreciate those of you that stopped by to hang out. If you have any questions about the build, feel free to shoot me an on Discord, either in the Doom Cube Discord. There's actually a channel dedicated to my projects. It's Master Mods, and there's even a thread specifically discussing the Pandora's Box printer. In addition, there's also the Voron Discord, and you can just at me there as well. And yeah, just let me know if you have any questions. I'm I was hoping to get a little bit more done with this, so that I'd be able to release everything with a full guide. But yeah, I'm still kind of deciding whether I want to just go ahead and release everything to the wild and let people do what they want to do. But at the same time, I know that there are parts that really do need uh, a little bit of explanation. So, hope you guys enjoyed everything. I guess I'll talk to you later. See you guys next week.